So I remember when I was like in elementary, right? I think I was in the third or fourth grade, right? And I had this teacher, right? I don't remember what was her name. I think her name was, oh, I remembered. It started with L, but I'm not gonna tell you the whole name, right? So I had this teacher, right? And it was like a class, but it had like oven in there and a microwave, right? So weird, right? I think that's the only class that had like a oven or a microwave in the elementary, right? So we was doing little cooking classes, And I remember like when I was younger, I always suck this dumb, right? So we was doing cooking class and she was like, "Oh, everybody sit down and who's gonna like pour like the oil in the pot or like the flour or sugar or something like that, right?" And all of us was participating, right? And somehow I put my hand in my mouth, right? And she looked over to me, She told me, go sit down over to the desk area, because she don't want no one sucking their thumb right next to her, right? So apparently I couldn't finish cooking with her, or my class, So that that's how I think she was an ass face, or ass monger, She was just a butthole. She was just a butthead, overall, So I never liked this teacher, I don't know if she was just victimizing me, And she had like a little what's that called? A little thing to make her students actually do their homework, right? So it was like this game, right? It was a whole game what was trending, right? And it was called Bugdom, right? It's about this little ladybug, right? And it was like ant workers, right? And then you have to get that little bug to another destination, right? So it was that game, right? And this is how she let her. This is how she made her students. I mean, me and the other students do their homework, right? If you want to if you want to play Bugdom before school starts or class starts, you gotta do your homework and it have to be right. So I was doing my work, or my homework, just so I could play Bugdom, right? And all the other kids came to our class, because Bugdom we was playing, right? So one day I was like, I want to play Bugdom, and before class starts, right? So I did my homework, and it was technically right, and then I was like playing on Bugdom, right? After a while, I found out what is a little trick, so you can like what's it called? Skip the other levels, right? That was not because anything. I didn't know she was a butthead, until now. I'm gonna tell you just little parts how she became a butthead, and an ass face, So it was like I don't know if I was like paying attention when I was like in class, or something like that. And we was doing our work, and I guess I didn't finish up all my work. And she had other she had other like teachers there, to help us, but there were other students, right? So somehow I just finished my work, right? And she was like, she did this to the other kids, I didn't thought she would do it to me. So some kids didn't finish their work, right? And it was like lunchtime, right? So she's like, we'll get lunch, right? And then instead of us eating our lunch, like a normal kid do, eating our lunch, right? She takes their lunch and put it to the side. So they have to do their work before they eat their food, right? And until the end of the day, then they can eat their food. And I always thought that was an ass face move, because how dare you take another kid's lunch and make sure they finish their work, and then almost in the end of the school day, then you give them back their food if they're done. I always thought that was just plain mean and just rude. So I didn't really tell my mom because I didn't thought it was going to happen to me, right? But even when it did happen to me, so I'm going to tell you the part when it did happen to me, When it did happen to me, I did not tell my mom, or my parents, because then they would think it will be my fault because if I just did my work, I would have just ate my lunch, right? So it was a day, I came to school like a normal day. So I sat down, did my work, and apparently it was too many kids right next to her getting help, right? And I didn't want to be one of those kids like bombard her with another bombard her with my work, to help me with, Even if she was the teacher, you're supposed to help the students, right? But in her eyes, she felt like you're supposed to do your work and get it done right. So I'm over here like struggling to get done with my work, right? And her not being a good teacher and say, hey, Venetia, you need help, Do you need help with your work, I know I could have just raised my hand and say that, oh, I need help, right, from the teacher, right? But even when I did, she just snored her nose and like didn't want to like help me. Maybe because she was just racist. I don't know. She did this to most of the black students, so I feel say she was racist. Take their lunch and wait until like the end of the school day and give it back to them, right? So it was like that, right? So it was like lunchtime, right? And she was like, Venetia, you didn't do your work, right? You didn't finish it, right? And I was like, no, miss, I didn't. And she was like, okay. So we went into the lunchroom and I got my lunch. She went in front of me and snatched my tray, of food, right? And I was like, I didn't know what to say, because I always thought that like adults is always right, And I guess apparently adults is not right, Adults is not right, when they tell you things. So she snatched my tray out of my hand, and I'm looking confused, like, what is going on. And then she hands me, now actually she hits me with the paper, what I didn't finish of my work, and say, go over there and sit down and go finish your work, And I was like confused because I was like, one, I was like hungry, and I was like in elementary, just to keep in mind, I was like in elementary, I was maybe like 8 years old, 8, 7 years old, and I'm like confused, I'm like, what is going on, and I had to do my work, and she was over there eating her food, the teacher was eating her food, and not even glancing to help me do my work, and when the lunch was over, we went back to our class, and she was like, did you finish, right? And I was like, I told her, I was raising my hand to get her help, right? And she came over there, and she's like, you don't know this answer? And I was like, no, that's why I asked you for help, right? And she was just being so rude and mean, And then when I got to the class, she was like, continue, finish your work. But I was like, miss, what about my lunch, She was like, you're not going to eat until your work is done, right? And then it was like in the end of this class day, And at this moment, my belly would stop, like growling, Because like in a certain time, my belly stopped growling after a while, So I was like, you know what, whatever, I'll eat when I get home, Maybe I'll eat my dad's nasty ass cooking, He usually give us some nasty ass food, He gets like the food what my mom prepare, and keep the grease and then put eggs and all these other stuff inside there and then put it with bread, And it always makes me want to throw up, Because he can't cook for shit, So I was like, fine, I'll eat his cooking, right? If we just go home, And after a while, like, it was like end of the school day, She was trying to hand me my food, And I was looking at her like in disgrace, like in disgust, like, why are you giving me my lunch now, It's already cold and it looks disgusting now, But in my head, I'm like, what if she already called my mom, and stuff like that, and said I didn't want to eat my lunch, or something like that. And I always thought that if she called my mom, I always get in trouble, right? So I looked at it. I looked at the nasty ass food I was supposed to be eating for lunch. At this point, my belly was done, like, growling, At this point, I was not hungry anymore. I was like, forget that shit, Forget it. I don't want to even eat. I looked at her like, bitch, go away, So she walked away. And it's kind of sad because why would you even do that to a child, especially like a black kid, you know. And I know for a fact she was racist, and I'm getting like teary-eyed, you know, because it is very hard for like I'm just remembering, you know. But scratch that, you know. So I was like looking at the food, and I was like, she was like, if you're not gonna eat it, I'm gonna throw it in the trash, you know. So she was like, oh, I already told your mom and stuff like that. And I was like, why would you even do that, you know? So I was like, I'm not gonna eat this nasty ass food anyway, you know. You know. So I was like, I took the juice and I was gonna eat it, you know. But then she took it and then threw it in the trash, you know. And I was like, why would you even do that to a child, you know? And so it was. I took the juice and I drank it, and then I was like, "What?" We left the class and then we went downstairs, you know, to get picked up from our parents or like it was like a car rider or a bus area, you know. And I was like a bus. I think I was like a car rider, you know. So I'm over here waiting, in like where the kids supposed to wait, you know. And I brought my siblings together so we can get in the car, right? I didn't tell nobody this even happened to me, you know. She always tried to get me in trouble. It was like so stupid, you know. She always like tried to give me a suspended or something like that. And she put it like in a piece of paper, right? And then she told me to give it to my parents, right? Guess what I did? I ripped it out, bitch. Like, who are you, you know? You're not nobody to me, you know. And I hope she went to jail for this bullshit she was doing to these kids, you know. Anywho, so I drank my juice and I went home and then I had dinner and then it was like that and then it was like the next day, you know. If this ever happened to you guys, like and subscribe, turn your notifications on. If this happened to you, like comment down below if it ever happened to you, you know. This make me feel much better, you know. Anywho, bye.